The red live button looked like a mouth waiting to swallow me, and I smiled at it like I had not once climbed willingly between its teeth. My laptop sat open on the edge of my bed, webcam light dark, microphone muted, chat window already filling with impatient messages from classmates who called me generous when they wanted my work and selfish when I kept one answer to myself. Outside my dorm window, the rain tapped the glass in quick, nervous fingers. Inside, my desk lamp threw a yellow circle over three things: a printed streaming schedule, a sealed envelope from the Academic Integrity Office, and the tiny silver ring my mother had left me before she died. In my first life, I had worn that ring while teaching an entire cohort how to survive the National Merit Finals. 3 days later, those same students told investigators I had sold them leaked exam material through my study stream. In my first life, I tried to prove I had only explained practice questions. I cried until my throat bled, opened every folder, surrendered every note, and begged people who had eaten from my hands to tell the truth. They did not. They played recordings. They produced screenshots. They showed clips of my face on screen beside answer structures that matched the real exam too closely to be coincidence. I was suspended, scrubbed from the merit list, and remembered as the girl who turned tutoring into fraud. So when I opened my eyes again on the night of the stream, with the same rain on the window and the same hungry red button waiting for me, I did not panic. I reached forward, clicked the event settings, and selected cancel for all attendees. The confirmation box appeared, so politely it almost made me laugh. Cancel scheduled study stream? This action will notify all subscribers. Beneath it, the chat kept moving without knowing its food had been taken away. Where are you, Leora? Don't be late. We need the ranking problem set. Serafina says you promised tonight's stream would cover the exact essay style. Someone sent a string of crown emojis. Someone else wrote, "Don't be dramatic again. Just start." I hovered over the button, listening to my own heartbeat in the soft machine hum of the dormitory. In my first life, I had believed silence made me cruel. I had believed refusing help would prove every rumor about me true, that the orphan scholarship girl only cared about outranking everyone, that my careful notes and late-night explanations were only weapons disguised as kindness. That guilt had killed me long before the disciplinary board did. It had made me press live even after Serafina Vane arrived at my room with sweet tea and a warning smile, even after she said the cohort would hate me if I canceled, even after I noticed the tiny recording icon reflected in her phone screen. This time, I clicked cancel. The red button vanished. A gray banner replaced it. Event canceled by host. My phone began vibrating on the bed like an insect trapped under glass. I did not answer the first call, or the second, or the 13 that followed. I watched Serafina's name appear, disappear, and appear again, each time with more insistence, as if the screen itself was becoming impatient on her behalf. The girl everyone called our golden swan did not like closed doors. She had built her entire beauty on the assumption that any room she wanted would open before she knocked. Professors softened when she tilted her head. Class monitors obeyed when she said she was only trying to help. Boys carried boxes for her, girls lent lipstick to her, and administrators smiled when she forgot forms other students would have been punished for missing. In my first life, I had admired her. That is the humiliating part one rarely admit even to myself. I admired how easily she collected attention, how her voice could quiet a room without asking, how she wrapped selfishness in silk until people called it leadership. When she first asked to appear on my study stream, I said yes because I thought she respected me. When she started summarizing my notes before I finished explaining them, I thought she was enthusiastic. When she asked me to send her my draft slides early so she could format them beautifully, I thanked her. By the time I understood that she had not joined my stream to learn from me, but to own what I had built, she already had the cohort trained to treat her copy as the original. My door opened without a knock at 8:46 p.m. Serafina stepped in wearing a cream cardigan, pearl earrings, and the expression of a girl arriving to rescue someone from a disaster she had personally arranged. Behind her stood Mira, the dorm representative, and Talia, who had borrowed my annotated civil theory guides so often that the spine had broken in her hands. They looked at my closed laptop, then at the cancelled event banner, then at me. Serafina spoke first. Leora, what happened? Her voice was soft, but her eyes were already hard. Everyone is waiting. I folded the printed schedule in half and slipped it under the sealed envelope on my desk. They can keep waiting. Mira blinked. Talia gave a short, nervous laugh, as if I had made a joke badly. Serafina's smile tightened. The final is in 2 days. You know the cohort depends on this stream. There it was, the same word she had used in my first life, depends, as if dependence gave them ownership. I stood from the bed and smoothed the front of my plain black sweater. Then they should have studied before tonight. Mira looked offended on behalf of people who had never defended me once. That's harsh. I turned to her. So, was giving my stream recordings to the committee and pretending you didn't know who made the copies. Her face drained before she understood why. For a few seconds, nobody moved. Rain scratched the window. The laptop fan clicked once. Serafina's eyes flickered, just once, toward the sealed envelope on my desk. She did not know what was inside, but she had always been good at sensing danger in paper. In my first life, she had sensed it in my old notebooks and destroyed them before I could submit them. She had sensed it in my messages and convinced the group chat to migrate to a new app before investigators requested export logs. She had sensed it in the truth and smothered it under sympathy, telling the board I was brilliant but unstable, generous but desperate, kind but maybe too proud to admit I had crossed a line. This time, I let her look. I wanted her to see the envelope. I wanted her to wonder whether it contained evidence, a threat, or nothing at all. Serafina took one slow step toward my desk. You're upset, she said. I understand. But canceling like this hurts everyone. If you don't feel well, I can host for you. I already have the slides you sent last week. I smiled then, and I watched her confidence sharpen because she mistook that smile for surrender. Host what? I asked. The stream is cancelled. She lifted her phone. I can start a mirror room. Everyone already follows the backup channel. Talia exhaled in relief. Mira nodded. Serafina's halo returned. They thought the crisis had found its queen. That backup channel had ruined me once. It had begun as a harmless duplicate platform after the Academy server crashed during midterms. Serafina made it, decorated it with pastel banners, and called it Leora's Study Garden, as if adding my name gave her permission. In my first life, I barely understood how much control I had handed over. She owned the channel. She controlled the moderators. She archived the streams, clipped the best parts, added captions, and distributed clean copies for students who missed the live sessions. When leaked materials appeared inside those recordings, the committee assumed I had placed them there because my face, my voice, and my slides appeared on screen. I argued that someone could have edited the files, but Serafina cried beautifully and produced platform logs showing she had only preserved what I broadcast. Nobody asked why she had downloaded every raw file within minutes. Nobody asked why the metadata passed through her account before it reached the class. Nobody asked because a golden girl holding a tissue looks like a witness, while an exhausted scholarship girl with red eyes looks like a culprit. This time, I said nothing about the backup channel. I only looked at Serafina's phone and asked, "Are you sure you want to host it yourself?" Her smile brightened with relief. Of course. For the cohort. Then do it, I said. But don't use my name. She should have heard the warning in that sentence. She did not, because people who steal often think boundaries are decorations. We'll credit you, she said quickly. Everyone knows the original material is yours. That isn't permission. My voice stayed level. I had practiced that tone in my head for years after my first life collapsed, imagining all the times I should have sounded less broken. If you use my slides, my name, my old recordings, or my voice tonight, you do it without consent. Mira frowned. Why are you making this legal? I looked at her long enough for her to shift her weight. Because last time none of you understood ethics until consequences arrived. Talia whispered my name, half plea, half warning. Serafina lowered her phone and studied me with the smallest new line between her brows. For the first time that night, she realized I was not acting from stress. She was clever enough to fear intention. Fine, she said, sweetness cooling. I'll make it my stream. I'll use my own explanations. But don't blame me if people are disappointed. She turned toward the door, cardigan swinging. Mira and Talia followed like moons dragged by a prettier planet. Before the door closed, Serafina looked back and added, "You'll regret disappearing when the rankings come out." I believed her. She had made sure I regretted appearing the first time. At 9 p.m., the cohort chat exploded with a new link. Serafina Vane is live. Emergency final review. Everything you need tonight. I sat at my desk with the sealed envelope open now, reading the first line for the 10th time, even though I knew every word. Miss Arden, following your confidential report regarding unauthorized replication of your study materials, the Academic Integrity Office has initiated silent monitoring of all third-party streams, downloads, and derivative documents connected to your scheduled final review. My hands did not tremble this time. They had trembled when I submitted the report 5 days earlier, because turning in a future crime before it happened made me feel insane. I had written it carefully. Not, "I was reborn," not "Serafina will frame me," but facts. The backup channel was not under my control. Students had pressured me to provide final predictions. My prior slides had been accessed by accounts outside the official class folder. A new watermarking protocol had been quietly embedded in my practice materials at the request of Professor Ilian, the only teacher in my first life who had hesitated before voting to expel me. I did not know whether he would believe me early enough. Then the envelope arrived that afternoon, sealed by Integrity Office stamp, informing me that any unauthorized stream using my materials would be logged, traced, and treated as coordinated misconduct. I opened Serafina's stream on a spare tablet I had registered under a guest account with no academy credentials. Her face filled the screen, luminous under soft lighting, hair pinned back with a pearl clip, expression grave in the way people look when they want kindness to seem like sacrifice. "Leora is unable to join us tonight," she said, and the chat flooded with hearts and sympathy before anyone asked me whether it was true. But I know how much this matters, so I'll guide everyone through the material she intended to cover. Intended. Such a beautiful thief's word, flexible enough to hold stolen things without leaving fingerprints. She shared her screen. The first slide appeared. My stomach clenched despite everything. It was mine, almost. The title had changed from Comparative Governance Models to Final Ranking Essay Structures. The blue border was now gold. My name had been removed from the corner and replaced with Serafina's swan logo. But beneath the surface, hidden in the third bullet point, a phrase sat exactly where Professor Ilian and I had planted it: procedural legitimacy under emergency adjudication. It looked academic. It was actually a marker. In the official syllabus, that phrasing had been retired after last year. In the version I uploaded to my private folder, it was marked obsolete. In the monitored watermark set, it identified unauthorized derivative use. The chat loved it. They wrote things like "Queen Lifesaver, this is better than Leora's old streams," and "Finally someone organized." I watched names I had once defended appear beside messages that would become evidence. Milo asked if the recording would be saved. Mira answered as moderator, "Already recording, don't worry." Talia wrote, "Downloading backup too." Someone named Ren asked if they should copy the essay skeleton exactly. Serafina laughed gently, as if exact copying was a childish phrase for the sophisticated things she was encouraging. "Internalize the structure," she said. "In a high-pressure exam, similarity is natural when everyone has learned from the best source." She meant herself. She also meant me, buried underneath. I thought of the First Life Committee room, the long table, the water glass shaking in my hand while Dean Orville asked why 37 students had reproduced the same argument sequence I used on stream. I thought of Serafina sitting 2 chairs away, whispering, "I told them not to copy you directly," with tears shining in her lashes. I had stared at her then, too stunned by betrayal to speak. Tonight I spoke to the empty dorm room. "Say it again," I whispered. On screen, as if obeying, Serafina said, "Save this part. It may be extremely useful." The first pattern disruption came at 9:23 p.m., when the stream froze and a black warning banner flashed across the top. Connection unstable. Serafina's smile slipped. The chat panicked instantly. Refresh? Is it being taken down? Did Leora report this? That last question came from a student named June, one of the few who had always looked guilty while stealing my notes.
Serafina recovered fast.
It's just traffic, she said. Everyone stay calm. But the freeze was not random. The Integrity Office had begun its capture protocol, injecting timestamp pings into the stream archive every 3 minutes. Professor Ilian had explained it in the envelope in language, so dry it nearly hid the danger. Monitored streams may be temporarily interrupted to verify source continuity and participant access logs. In simpler words, every viewer, downloader, screen recorder, and file sharer was being tagged while they congratulated themselves for being clever. I did not know that in my first life. I had assumed evidence was something people found after harm. This time I learned evidence could be invited to sit quietly in the room before the crime finished dressing itself. At 9:41 p.m., Serafina opened the question packet that destroyed her. She called it an advanced prediction set, smiling as if she had created it from pure brilliance. I recognized the first prompt immediately, not because it was from the real final, but because it had been designed to look like what desperate students imagined a leak would look like. Professor Ilian had written it himself after I told him the cohort expected me to provide exact predictions. It contained 3 clues that marked it as a trap, a case name that did not exist, a statute number from a repealed practice guide, and a final instruction that violated academy exam format. A student who understood the material would notice something wrong. A student hunting shortcuts would memorize it hungrily. Serafina read the fake prompt aloud with reverence. This is the style I believe they'll use, she said. I can't reveal my source, but trust me.
Trust me.
The 2 most expensive words in education. The chat went wild. Screenshots flew. Someone asked if they should circulate it to the Phoenix Rankers group. Serafina paused just long enough to pretend she was considering ethics. Only to people we trust, she said. No outsiders. I leaned back in my chair and covered my mouth, not because I wanted to cry this time, but because a laugh had risen so suddenly it hurt. My roommate, Anya, returned at 10:03 p.m. carrying wet shoes in one hand and noodles in the other. She stopped when she saw Serafina's face on the tablet. Unlike the others, Anya had never loved the golden girl. She was too practical for worship and too tired for glamour. In my first life, she had been the only student who told investigators that the backup stream was suspicious, but her statement disappeared under 20 louder lies. This time, I had not told her everything. I had only asked if I could be alone from 8 to 10, and she had left without demanding a reason. Now she looked at the screen, then at me, then at the sealed envelope lying open on my desk. Is this the part where you become terrifying? She asked. I picked up the noodles from her hand and took a bite. I canceled my stream. Anya's brows lifted. And she made her own using your stuff? Yes. And everyone is recording it? Yes. Anya looked back at the tablet where Serafina was explaining the fake packet with priestly confidence. Good, she said, sitting on her bed. I was worried you were going to forgive them again. That sentence landed harder than I expected. Forgive them again. In my first life, forgiveness had been my worst habit, sharpened into a blade and handed to everyone who wanted to cut me. I forgave classmates who treated my notes like public property. I forgave teachers who praised my generosity because it saved them office hours. I forgave Serafina for accidentally taking credit during presentations, forgave Mira for adding her watermark to my diagrams, forgave Talia for sharing private explanations in paid groups because her family needed money. I forgave until there was no boundary left, only a girl-shaped resource standing in the middle of an academy that had learned to harvest her politely. When the scandal came, I expected that long history of giving to protect me. Instead, it made the lie easier. Of course Leora shared too much. Of course Leora blurred lines. Of course Leora wanted to be needed so badly she might have sold answers and called it help. My kindness did not become evidence of innocence. It became motive. Sitting in the dorm room with noodles cooling in my hand, I decided that if this second life required mercy, it could begin after truth finished speaking. The stream ended at 11:12 p.m. with Serafina placing both hands over her heart and thanking everyone for trusting her leadership. She promised to upload the recording in 3 versions: full replay, condensed notes, and exam day emergency sheet. The chat showered her with gratitude so thick it almost looked like devotion. Then the files began appearing in shared folders. I watched the download counts climb. 30, 60, 90, 140. By midnight, almost the entire cohort had saved at least one copy. By 12:30 a.m., the emergency sheet had been edited into a 2-page printable guide with Serafina's logo on top and my obsolete phrase embedded in the first paragraph. By 1:10 a.m., someone had translated it into a memory chant. I knew because Anya showed me a voice note from the dorm floor chat. Emergency adjudication, legitimacy foundation, 3-part remedy, for part conclusion. Girls were chanting it through laughter, drunk on certainty. In the first life, that sound would have shattered me. Tonight it sounded like a clock winding itself toward punishment. The next morning, I went to breakfast without my laptop. That small absence caused more confusion than any speech could have. The dining hall was bright with panic disguised as confidence. Students sat in clusters, whispering over printed sheets, highlighting Serafina's packet, copying the fake case name onto their wrists and water bottle labels as if repetition could turn theft into study. When I entered, conversation thinned and then surged around me. They expected me to look ruined. They expected regret, maybe anger, maybe a dramatic confrontation they could clip and circulate. Instead, I took a tray, poured porridge, added brown sugar, and sat alone near the window. Serafina arrived 5 minutes later to immediate attention. Someone pulled out a chair for her. Someone handed her tea. Mira leaned close, whispering fast, and Serafina looked across the hall at me with concern polished enough for witnesses. Then she stood and walked over carrying her cup like a peace offering. "Leora," she said gently, loud enough for nearby tables. "Can we talk?" I ate 1 spoonful of porridge before answering. "No," a few students gasped, as if refusing a conversation were violence. Serafina's smile trembled at the edges. "I only wanted to say I hope you're feeling better." People were worried. "People were downloading," I said. The room quieted. She lowered her voice. "Don't do this." I looked up. I already did. Her eyes changed. Only for a heartbeat, the swan disappeared and something smaller, sharper, uglier looked out. "You don't own studying," she whispered. "You don't own ideas." "No," I said. "But I own my stream. I own my slides. And I own the right to cancel something with my name on it." She leaned closer, cardigan sleeve brushing the edge of my tray. "If you report everyone, they'll hate you forever." I almost admired how quickly she reached for the old chain. Hate had controlled me once. The threat of losing people who only liked me when I was useful had made me obedient for years. This time, I looked around the dining hall at the faces pretending not to listen and felt nothing close to fear. "They already hated me when I asked for credit," I said. "At least now they'll have a reason." Serafina straightened, color rising in her cheeks. She turned so the room could see her wounded dignity. "I tried to help," she said. "Remember that." Then she left, and half the dining hall followed her with their eyes while the other half stared at me as if I had slapped a saint. The final was scheduled for Thursday, but the real judgment began Wednesday afternoon. At 2 p.m., every candidate received an email titled Mandatory Pre-Final Integrity Verification. Students groaned across campus. Most assumed it was routine. It was not. We were ordered to bring all study materials used in the previous 72 hours, including printed guides, downloaded recordings, collaborative documents, private tutor packets, screenshots, and handwritten summaries. Failure to disclose would be treated as aggravating misconduct. The email also stated that the Merit Council had identified possible unauthorized derivative materials circulating among candidates. I read it under the jacaranda tree outside the library, sunlight breaking purple through the branches, and felt the world tilt toward justice. Around me, students started calling each other. The panic was immediate and almost beautiful. Do they mean the stream? Should we delete it? If everyone has it, They can't punish everyone. Serafina said it was fine. That last sentence repeated everywhere, like a prayer from people who had mistaken charm for protection. Serafina herself appeared on the library steps 20 minutes later, surrounded by anxious students. She raised both hands and told them deleting files would look suspicious. She said they should be honest, present the materials as regular study aids, and trust that academic similarity was normal. It was excellent advice for innocent people and catastrophic advice for a conspiracy. Anya and I watched from a bench. She had popcorn. I did not ask where she got it. She's still leading them? Anya said. She has to, I answered. If she stops, they'll wonder why. Serafina's strength had always been momentum. She did not win because every lie was perfect. She won because she moved fast enough that people felt safer following than questioning. In my first life, when the investigation began, she told everyone to keep one story. Leora streamed the packet. Leora told us to save it. Leora said exact phrasing was acceptable. They repeated it until repetition became truth. This time, she needed a different story. Serafina hosted an independent review. Serafina used public concepts. Serafina did not know anyone recorded or shared anything improper. But the cohort's own hunger was destroying that version minute by minute. They had screen recordings. They had chat logs. They had messages saying save this, circulate to trusted people, emergency sheet, source. They had turned themselves into an archive because greed loves documentation when it thinks documentation is advantage. At the verification session, the academy gym had been converted into an evidence hall. Long tables stretched across the basketball court. Integrity officers sat behind laptops, scanning QR codes, checking devices, collecting printouts in clear bags. The Merit Council members stood along the wall with expressions carved from ice. I entered through the side door with one folder, my cancellation confirmation, my original report, and the official email acknowledging silent monitoring. An officer checked my name and directed me to table 7. Across the gym, Serafina arrived like a bride at a funeral, pale but poised, her hair perfect, her folder thin. Behind her came the cohort carrying binders, tablets, flash drives, and guilty confidence. Some smiled when they saw me, smug because they thought I had no materials and therefore no preparation. Others avoided my eyes. I sat down before Investigator Hale, a woman with silver glasses and a voice so calm it felt dangerous. She opened my folder, read for several seconds, and looked up. Miss Arden, you canceled your scheduled stream at 8:42 p.m. Tuesday? Yes. Did you authorize any replacement broadcast? No. Did you permit Miss Vane or any other student to use your materials, likeness, prior recordings, slides, or derivative notes? No. Did you attend, participate in, or download the replacement stream?
No.
I observed from a guest device after submitting my prior report, as advised. Investigator Hale nodded once. Thank you. Please wait. The waiting was the cruelest part for everyone else. At table 3, Mira argued that moderators were not responsible for content. At table 4, Talia cried over a printed emergency sheet with her annotations in pink pen. At table 9, June admitted he had screen recorded for a personal review, but insisted everyone did it. One by one, the officers asked the same questions. Where did this file come from? Who hosted the stream? Who told you to save it? Did you notice the watermark? Did you compare it with the current syllabus? Did you pay for access? Did you share it? Did you delete anything after the verification email? Each answer tightened the net. The most devastating moment came when an officer projected the stream chat logs onto the gym screen. The room went so quiet that the buzz of fluorescent lights sounded like insects. There was Serafina's account saying, save this part. There was Mira saying, already recording. There was Talia saying, downloading backup too. There were students requesting the fake packet, asking who could be trusted, promising not to send it outside the cohort. Then the officer opened a second window. Source metadata. Every slide traced back to my cancelled stream folder, accessed through Serafina's backup channel after cancellation. Every downloaded copy carried the hidden obsolete phrase and timestamp pings. Every edited emergency sheet preserved the watermark, like a stain that survived washing. Serafina stood at table 1, hands clasped, face luminous with panic. She did what she had done in my first life. She cried. Her tears came beautifully, sliding down without reddening her nose, just enough to soften the room if the room had still belonged to students. I was trying to help, she said. Everyone was afraid. Leora canceled without warning. I thought using older materials was acceptable because we had all studied together before. I never meant for anyone to treat it as leaked content. Investigator Hale did not blink. You stated on stream that you could not reveal your source. Serafina swallowed. I meant my intuition. Someone behind me made a strangled noise. Hale clicked another file. Serafina's voice filled the gym speakers, clear and damning. Only send it to people we trust.
No outsiders.
Hale paused the clip. Was that also intuition? Serafina's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For once, no speech arrived to save her. The golden swan had finally flown into a glass wall and, discovered transparency, was still solid. Then they played the part one had not known existed. Professor Ilian stepped forward with a tablet and requested permission to present a comparative file. On the screen appeared 2 versions of my slide deck. Version A, my original private practice notes, watermarked, obsolete phrasing embedded, never broadcast. Version B, Serafina's stream deck, logo changed, name removed, structure identical, hidden marker intact. He spoke without looking at me. Miss Arden submitted concerns regarding unauthorized access before the broadcast occurred. At my direction, controlled markers were placed in the suspected materials. Miss Arden then canceled her official stream. The replacement stream was not authorized. Its circulation demonstrates deliberate unauthorized distribution by accounts other than Miss Arden's. The words were dry, institutional, almost boring. They were also the sound of a locked door opening after years underground. I lowered my head, not to cry, but to breathe. Anya touched my elbow under the table once, quick and fierce. Across the gym, students began turning on Serafina with the speed of people who had never loved her, only needed her innocence to cover their own. By evening, the Merit Council issued provisional sanctions. Candidates who attended the unauthorized stream but did not download, share, or use the materials received warnings and mandatory ethics review. Candidates who saved, circulated, printed, annotated, or relied on the packet were suspended from the final pending investigation and removed from the preliminary merit list. Students who moderated or distributed the stream faced full disciplinary hearings. Serafina Vane was barred from the final immediately, stripped of council nominations, and referred for expulsion review. The word scrubbed from the merit list appeared in the official notice at 6:14 p.m., and for several minutes the Academy server crashed under the weight of people refreshing their own humiliation. I watched from my dorm room while rain returned to the window. Names disappeared one by one from the ranking portal.
Mira, Talia, Rain.
The Phoenix rankers. The girls who had once said everyone copied a little. The boys who said I should be grateful to have influence. The classmates who believed fraud became fairness when enough people committed it together. Their ranks blinked, grayed out, and vanished. Mine remained, not at the top yet, not glowing, not dramatic, simply present. Leora Arden, eligible. Serafina came to my room after sunset. I knew she would. People like her always return to the person they stole from, not to apologize, but to search the wreckage for one last usable piece. Anya offered to stay. I asked her to wait in the hall instead, because some conversations need witnesses nearby and silence inside. Serafina stood at my threshold wearing the same cream cardigan from Stream Night, but without the pearl earrings. Her face looked smaller. Anger had stripped away the softness. You planned this, she said.
No greeting. No tears.
Yes. She flinched, perhaps because she expected denial. You let them all fall. No, I said. I stepped out from under them. Her laugh was sharp enough to cut. You think that makes you innocent? You knew they would record. You knew they trusted me. I knew you would steal. She stared at me then, and the hatred in her eyes was almost honest enough to respect. You were nothing before people needed your notes. There it was, the truth underneath every compliment she had ever given me. Not brilliant, useful, not friend, supplier, not classmate, infrastructure. I leaned against the doorframe and felt strangely calm. And you were everything until people needed you to tell the truth. Her hand twitched at her side. For a second I thought she might slap me. Instead she whispered, "I can still say you set me up." "You should," I said. "Make sure you do it in writing." She understood then that the hallway cameras were on. Her eyes flicked upward, then back to me, and color drained from her face. She stepped back as if my doorway had become a cliff. I did not smile. Victory is not always loud. Sometimes it is simply refusing to make the final mistake someone expects from you. Serafina left without another word, her footsteps fading down the corridor that had once carried rumors faster than fire. The next morning, she filed a complaint claiming entrapment, emotional distress, and targeted sabotage. The complaint included 3 contradictions, 2 false timestamps, and 1 sentence admitting she had accessed my materials to preserve cohort continuity. Investigator Hale forwarded me a copy weeks later during my own clearance meeting, not because I needed it, but because institutional justice apparently enjoys irony when properly documented. Serafina's expulsion was finalized before winter break. Mira transferred quietly. Talia wrote me one apology message that began with "I didn't know" and ended with "please don't block me." I did not reply. Forgiveness, I had learned, was not a group project. The actual final exam was almost disappointingly ordinary.
No fake leaks.
No chanting in dorm corridors. No golden girl standing at the center of the room handing out salvation with a watermark hidden under her sleeve. Just desks, clocks, paper, breath, and the dull ache in my fingers after 3 hours of writing answers nobody else had touched. The essay question did not mention emergency adjudication. It asked about public trust, institutional accountability, and the difference between shared responsibility and collective misconduct. I laughed once under my breath when I read it, quietly enough that the proctor only glanced at me. Then I wrote. I wrote about systems that reward convenience until ethics becomes optional. I wrote about leaders who confuse influence with permission. I wrote about communities that hide individual guilt inside group behavior and call it fairness. I did not mention Serafina by name. I did not mention the stream. I did not mention my first life, where I had begged for a chance to explain what everyone now understood without me screaming. I simply answered the question like a girl who had finally stopped lending her voice to people who only wanted an echo. When the final merit list came out, I was alone in the library basement, repairing the spine of an old book with glue borrowed from the archive desk. I did not attend the announcement ceremony. I did not stand under the screen with the crowd. I did not let cameras catch my face at the moment my name appeared. In my first life, public recognition had been the bait that dragged me into every trap. This time, I wanted the news to find me quietly. Anya found me first. She came running down the stairs, so fast the librarian hissed at her from behind a cart. She held her phone out, breathless, grinning, eyes bright. "You absolute nightmare," she whispered. My name was at the top. Not because others had fallen, though many had. Because when the noise disappeared, my work remained. Leora Arden, National Merit Rank 1. Beneath it, a note stated that the Merit Council had finalized disciplinary removals connected to unauthorized digital materials and that the revised list was certified. Certified. Such a cold word. Such a beautiful one. Months later, people would tell the story differently, depending on what they needed from it. Some said I was ruthless. Some said Serafina got what she deserved. Some said the academy overreacted because too many important families were embarrassed. Some said everyone used shared materials, and only fools got caught. The cohort rebuilt itself around denial, as cohorts do. New chats formed. New leaders rose. New students whispered warnings about streams, screenshots, watermarks, and the orphan girl who canceled one live session and collapsed an empire of borrowed answers. I did not correct them. I had learned that reputation is a weather system. You can spend your whole life chasing clouds, or you can build a roof. I built mine out of boundaries. I stopped hosting free sessions for people who only appeared before exams. I posted public notes with clear permissions and no private predictions. I helped students who asked honest questions and refused anyone who asked for shortcuts wrapped in flattery. And every time my cursor hovered over a live button, I remembered the red mouth waiting to swallow me, and I made sure I was choosing to speak, not being fed to an audience. The last time I saw Serafina was not dramatic enough for the girl she used to be.
No courtroom. No rain.
No crowd gasping as she fell to her knees. It was at a train station convenience store, nearly a year later, where she stood in front of the instant coffee shelf wearing a gray coat and no makeup, holding a basket with bread, batteries, and a cheap umbrella. For 1 second, we looked at each other over a display of chewing gum. Her face changed first, pride rising like a shield, then shame burning through it, then anger, because anger was easier to carry in public. I expected her to say something cruel. I expected myself to want that. Instead, she looked away and walked to the cashier. That was when I understood the final punishment had never been the expulsion, the blacklist, or the scrubbed merit list. It was being ordinary after building your life on being exceptional at someone else's expense. I bought my train ticket, stepped onto the platform, and let the cold air fill my lungs. My phone buzzed with a message from a first-year student asking if I still ran study streams. I typed back, yes. Official channel only. No recordings without consent. Bring questions, not greed. Then I put the phone away before the reply came. If my first life taught me anything, it was that betrayal rarely begins with a knife. It begins with a link sent at midnight, a file shared just this once, a classmate saying everyone is counting on you, a golden girl smiling while she turns your work into a ladder and asks why you are upset when people climb. It begins with the belief that being useful will make people love you. My second life taught me something cleaner. A canceled stream can be an answer. A closed document can be a boundary. Silence can be evidence when you have already told the truth in the right room. And sometimes the most powerful thing a girl can do is step away from the stage, turn off the camera, and let the people who are waiting to record her discover that they have only recorded themselves.